degree, my Japanese was already better than theirs because I've been studying all my life. And about a year into the job, I discovered that I was getting paid 25% less. And this is AT&T, and I was livid. I was just, one called the corporate, right? It would have been this big thing about, Japanese AT&T discriminating against women. But went to my boss, like no surprises, right? I went to my boss. I explained the situation. This is really unfair. My boss said, well, let me try to work on it. Weeks went by. I didn't hear anything. So I went to my boss's boss and I said, this is really inequitable. And he said, well, give me some time to work on it. Meanwhile, I was managing up and I worked with a senior woman executive, and she said, look, you have a choice. You can certainly be a whistleblower. It will end your career at AT&T. Or you can sort of work with the system, be very clear with the supervisor what you expect, and then you'll still have a career with AT&T. And so she, coached me through that very difficult process. In the end, they upped my salary to match the men at the end of the fiscal year. They didn't do any back pay, but, it was sort of a compromise, I felt, of, because in Japan, they routinely sex discriminate pay. But what was interesting was there was a fourth woman who had a similar degree, and I told her that the women were getting paid less, and she's like, I don't want to rock the boat. And I felt more harmed by that than, the situation. But just sort of get into my coaching.
But it brings to mind that issue of change. In other words, there are ways to make change, and you are obviously studying this and evaluating what is the way that you're going to make change. And you'll be asked this, you'll be given these situations ongoing in your career. And so you will have to come to peace with the decisions you make in terms of how you decide to make that change. Sometimes it's right to be private and to, handle it and not be quote unquote the whistleblower. Sometimes it's not, and you do need to be the whistleblower. And there are consequences to those, and it takes a lot of clarity about what's right for you to think that through.
Anybody else would like to comment?
One thing that comes up with me is that it really comes down to your integrity, and one thing that we really speak to at Shakti is this piece around scaling forward, and how are we going to actually take the big risks. And sometimes the big risk is not speaking up, and sometimes it's really like going, I'm going to just go for it. And in this idea of really leaning in, and I keep, leaning in and sailing forward. Yeah, you fail, whatever that may look like, and you get back up and you keep moving. And I think the important piece, which I know some of the other questions will get to speak to, is having this amazing network that then supports you when you do fail forward.
Thank you. We're going to move on to emotional spiritual health. What do you do to keep up your mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health? And when you are accustomed to helping other people, and when do you find time for yourself?
I really appreciate the question. I really appreciate the focus on yourself. This is the foundation for everything else. So I myself have a very, I would say, very spiritual perspective about life, and I found that the way to help sustain me is to surround myself with others who are like-minded and share my perspective. So, for example, I used to work at the Kellogg Foundation in Valley Creek, Michigan, and had a circle of friends there who have now moved around the country, but we stay connected. We have our own women's circle, and we just connect by a conference call every couple of months. And right before the election, we were, connecting about that, and I just can't even begin to tell you how nurturing that has been, to have these sustained relationships over 15 years now. And they know me, it's like growing up with each other career-wise. Having like-minded friends who are there for you no matter what, just from, phone call away. And then there's some great facilitated exercises, like when you are faced, let's say, with a really serious challenge, like maybe you need to leave your job and you're just not sure how to make that change. Bringing yourself a circle of friends to sit down and help problem solve with you. Maybe some of you know it, I'm forgetting the name. It's called like a Mormon or Quaker. It's a Quaker type circle where you come together and just beautiful facilitated exercises with problem solving. So
But especially at the college age level, I encourage that, thinking about who are some friends as you start to think about transitioning into your career. Really, I think sometimes the toughest moments are when you're trying to make change into a new level of your life, whether it's family or work. So great source of help there. Anybody else?
Well, I just want to say that I urge you, please, beg you, don't follow in my footsteps, because my passion and my spirituality was always in that God had given me this gift of giving and caring for everybody else. So I didn't take very good care of myself. I really didn't worry about me, but I've always gone to church and had a very strong spiritual foundation. I think in my choir, I have that in my Bible. So I love that, but that's 1 hour on Sunday, and everybody needs more than that. So, but I have lifelong friends. I mean, there's nobody in my life that if I pick up the phone call that they wouldn't be happy to hear my voice. So I take pride in that, but I don't take the time to pick the phone up enough. And so I have started doing that, but really I surround myself with positive people that are trying to do something positive and make the world a better place. I don't have time for people that are just complaining and just everything is bad, everything is negative. I don't do that. But really, you have to, whoever asked that question is a wonderful question. Do take care of yourself, because I have more to give when I take care of myself. I really do. And so I just want to share, don't follow in my footsteps. I've learned.
I also, for me personally, it's my spiritual practice that really, really lends to me being able to do the work. It gives me the energy. And it also gives me a lot of times the answers to what I'm looking for. It actually gives me the vision and the ability to go, okay, this is what I really am connected to and what I see and what I want to see the change. And when I give myself that moment to sit and take a breath or to meditate or go to a yoga class, I walk out of there knowing way more about actually how and why and what I want to do, and my well gets filled. So then I can have more energy to actually do the thing that I see.
I don't know if anyone else does this, but I try every 5 years to take a vision quest. Time away from my commitments, my family. It may just be a weekend, it could be, if I'm lucky, a week, and literally by myself take time away to have those big thoughts. Where am I? Where am I doing what I want to do? Am I, where are my strengths and weaknesses in my life? How's it look? That 360 degree to myself. And I think if you have those, yes, friendship is so deeply important, as obvious, but also the silence is really important too.
Great. We'll go on to leadership. Who inspired you to be a leader, advocate for social change?
Yeah, my grandmother, her Nana Coca, she was 95 when she passed away, and I'm very honored to have been there at her side when she had her last breath. And she was someone who migrated across the border and really raised her 5 children, and by the time she died, she had like 48 grandchildren and 8 great-grandchildren, and her career was really a domestic health cleaner, and she was a most amazing woman. She really knew how to give unconditional love, and she was teaching me from a very early age to recycle. That was way before I even thought about it. And the thing about her that I will never forget, it's in my blood, it's in my DNA, and she said, don't forget where you come from. So don't forget where you come from. And that was really my first learning around my social location and race, class, gender analysis, right? It's just, who am I? And what community am I from? And just regardless of the future ahead for me, always remember that there's a greater community that I need to be thoughtful about. And I think I've been living my life inspired by my grandmother, and also inspired to make a difference without becoming a martyr. So that to me is my greatest opportunity for personal enlightenment in my life, which is how do I leave this world a better place than I found it, and take care of myself too along the way.
Let me just go down the line briefly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my mother. She came to this country as an immigrant from Japan by ship because there wasn't plane travel widely available. And she landed in Philadelphia. She was raised by the Quaker community. She did her master's working in settlement houses in North Philadelphia, which is a predominantly black neighborhood. And you know, here's this Japanese woman, very heavy accent, landing in North Philadelphia. Most of the kids had never seen an Asian person before. So they were always touching her skin and her hair. It looked like she was from outer space, but she loved it. She just loved working with this, you know, very different culture. And so she had this fearlessness that I think I've learned from. We lost her several years ago, but she was fearless about going into any room. It didn't matter that she didn't know anybody, but she would hold her own and feel a sense of entitlement to be there, to be around the table. So I think it is
My grandmother as well. She was this little 4'9" spitfire that had the most gentle soul, but you wouldn't know that she was the first woman on the school board in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Wow.
That she brought Planned Parenthood to Albuquerque, New Mexico. She actually, it's funny, we're talking today, there's a building being named in her honor as we speak.
Oh, wow.
She provided nursing program, vocational training to Latina women. So what was really interesting to me is when she died, we went into her room and there were these folders, books and books and books, little ledger books. And they were back to, I think it was 1931. And she had been taking the money that my grandfather gave her each week and $1 to ACLU, $1 to NAACP. Well, I mean, imagine, right? So this is how she did her thing. And she had, they went there until 1975. She had tracked every month the little money that he'd given her, and she was saving on these, you know, soup cans and doing what she could. I know, stuff. So.
Anyway, my grandfather was my hero. He didn't even attend public school, but he had a mind for math and history of this country and a love of this country. And so when we 12 kids, my mom and dad had 12 kids, and we all lived on the farm together. My grandfather was a matriarch. My mother's mother, his wife, died when they were like 2 or 3. So we all stayed together in this house and worked the land and did all this. But he had people coming from all over, near and far, to ask him about when to plant, you know, when to sow, when to pluck, when to do whatever. He knew that if you planted 3 seeds, you were gonna reap 3 pounds or whatever. I mean, mentally, mathematically, he was a genius. I mean, he had to. But he was the kind of person that people came to. So he would just sit us around and he would ask us questions. Who's the 21st president? And if you didn't get it right, he would hit you. All instead of we would get hit, but we would get hit. And so his love of educating us and making us believe, but he always told me, he said, you're the one. You're going to be the one that really takes this family to the next level. So it was like, why me? So I was given that, I think, gift from God, but my grandfather just totally just stirred that up in me that, you know, you're the one. Because I always wanted to get all the answers right, and my brothers and sisters, and they didn't get the answers right, but I didn't want to do it for him. So then I had an aunt she lived to 113.
Wow.
And she worked the land, everything she ate, and I mean, she cooked the eggs, she cooked the eggs, she made the cake, she did everything. But she used to go and visit everybody that was sick. And I tell you, every time, and I would go with her because I just love that. She was like, okay, we're going to go today to visit cousin so-and-so that I never met. But I would go with her, and then I tell you, whenever we went to the door, if they were dying or whatever, they raised up and they got better when she visited. So I think that's where I got my caregiving from. I just love making people feel better. So I have 2 role models that, so I just love them so much. So thank you for letting me share that.
They're still so alive through you.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
The first 2 people that come to you are my grandfather on my mother's side, and from as long as I can remember, well, one, I would always wake up really early because I wanted to sit with him at breakfast. Like, it was so important. It didn't matter to sit with him, and I wouldn't even eat. But but just to sit and you'd be reading the newspaper, and many times he wouldn't say anything, but those special occasions when he was a philanthropist, and just such a thinker, and he would just speak about what was happening in the world, and how he would go about seeing change, or what his ideas were, and I grew up always being told that when he was around 6 years old, he went to his father and said, "Where does all the cash go?" And his father was kind of, "What do you mean, where does all the cash go?" "Well, it goes to the dump." "Yeah, but then what happened?" And he was always before his time thinking about, where does the cash go at 5 years old in the 1920s. About 30, 40 years ago, he made these amazing bags that people could use at grocery stores. He created them. They didn't sell. He didn't make any money from them because it was just a little too soon for people to realize, like, why would you need that? And then also my grandmother on my dad's side, she just was also just this small woman, thick fireball of a woman who, one was just really dedicated also to the environment. I remember always walking out and she would pick the weeds that were coming through and also tell us all about the plants along the way on the pathway. She was the first woman president of the Excerpt Festival in Oregon. First woman and also the first person to be voted in a second time. And I think for me, for both of them, I really got to see the connection, one of women and girls through my grandmother, and how the importance of that, and then also the importance of the environment, and how it really was the interconnection between the two.
Yeah.
So.
I'll be really quick. I think both my mother and my grandfather were huge inspirations to me, but the way that I think there are many ways that they inspired my life and my passion, but I think the one that was most significant is through love of reading. So I then began to draw role models and examples of leadership and intellectual curiosity and creativity and courage and passion from a number of people, historical and otherwise. So it would be hard for me to boil that down to one person. I think what I would say is that the more you can embrace the inner journey and figure out those things that are important to you, it will be easier for you to find them in others, whether it's the group of friends that you form and that, are kind of your career family, or whether it is the things that you make sure you pass on. I have to tell you, we all, I think, hit that point where we find ourselves saying to our children something our mother said to us, oh my God, I've become her, but there are some things that are really special and important that we want to pass forward. So when the question was asked, I thought, wow, who do I say? Do I, Harriet Tubman, Malcolm X, yes, W.E.B. Du Bois. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so growing up in a family where reading was very important, and where talking about what you read was very important, and where engaging in much more how to think than what to think. So if you said something, people ask you how you got there. They couldn't just kind of make these big conclusion statements and people say, oh yeah, no. You had to really demonstrate that you thought about it. So my mother and my grandfather really led that movement in my life and in my sister's life, and so and they continue to be huge inspirations, but again, I think that there are many, many I could name. There are parts of many lives that I could point to and say, this is my North Star for this or that.